Bum 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 bum. Hello, how you guys doing, ladies and gentlemen? We are here. We're apparently the only two people with a functioning internet connection here tonight, but that still means that episode 70 of the Friday Night Movie Club is here with us. I'm joined here, my good buddy Rob Motto, with a very fresh-looking mic setup you got going there, and the headphones too. The headphones new as well, or just the mic?
Yeah, I have people in my family who love me and buy me gifts, so that's and I pretend like I'm a complete like recluse, but yeah, no, I have a family, so yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
I just like that setup. I have people in my life who love me, so it's like, yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
To make things better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then our good buddy Rick is trying to straighten out some connection troubles that he's having right now. Let's see if he's back. So we're gonna go live with this one. So this could be very, very interesting. Rick, are you there? It's probably gonna be like 5 seconds before he responds. I'm gonna take that as no. So
Just watching him look into the camera. I think he's frozen now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Rick is having a series of connection issues right now, but we'll work on straightening it out as the show goes on here. But we're here tonight to talk about two films that I watched both of these movies. I think you only saw one, but then again, one was only your assignment, so there you go. But we have to talk about the Beekeeper tonight, and then we're also going to talk about the. It's weird. It's not a remake. It's like a musical version of a film that already existed under the same title from 20 years ago, but it's Mean Girls 2024. And that's our second film that we're reviewing here tonight. So I guess we can go ahead and get started. This is like the first week of the new year where we've actually, gotten together to talk about movies again. And I know we can't just do a cheap movie night like we usually do when we go watch a movie that we don't want to watch. But here we are. Does it feel, I don't know, how does it feel to you getting back into like the grind of, okay, I have to go back into the movie theater and watch movies again? Like, especially like this first week, was it just like, were you dreading it, or what was kind of your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's a crapshoot with January. You might get a good movie here and there, but usually it's the crap that studios want to take the least amount of risk on, and just like, hey, let's release it in January and February. So it's generally not a great time for movies, but sometimes you get surprised. I know Megan was kind of a surprise last year. That was like a pretty decent way to start off the year. But it's, a lot of the studios are releasing their Oscar stuff still. And so they're still wrapping up 2023. I mean, I still have a few movies left over that I need to get watched and stuff, but it's just like, hey, I know that this first movie isn't necessarily like going to be representative of the rest of the year. You know what I mean? But it's just take it with a grain of salt. You know, it's a long year and it's the first release, so it's just hope for the best.
Well, remember the old Red Letter Media joke, like from a few years ago, the whole "fuck you" is January, which is basically just like Hollywood's leftovers from the films that they really didn't care to throw out there during award season. So this January has kind of notoriously been like the Hollywood graveyard. It's like, oh, here's a movie that's coming out, released in January. It's like, oh, that movie's probably going to be crap, and that's generally how I felt over the last couple of years. Now, I feel like the last 2 years they've gotten slightly better around this time. Like they're not just as abhorrent as it was like a few years ago. Like the worst one that I remember, I'm not sure if you remember this film. It was a film a few years ago called The Bye Bye Man. Did you ever watch that movie?
I might have seen it just to sort of like watch a horror movie. You know what? No, I put it on this past year and I stopped
Mhm.
it within like 15 minutes. I was like, even for a horror movie, this is a piece of shit. So yeah.
I remember getting a screening for that movie. This had to be like 2017, I believe. We got a screener for that movie, and about I say 30 to 40 minutes in, everyone in the audience like started turning on it to the point where it's like everyone just started. It was supposed to be a horror film, but by about 40 minutes in, it just turned into a comedy for everyone who was watching. And I remember just like literally like had to be a couple hundred people walking out of the theater. It's like, wow, that was actually garbage, but it was so bad it was entertaining. Like I only had that experience with two films. The Bye Bye Man was one of them, and then Wish Upon was the other one. And obviously, if you see our intro here, we have the little clip where what's her name, Joey King, gets hit by a car. She bounces onto another car. That was essentially what that film was too. It was supposed to be like this big scary movie, and like literally 30 minutes in, it just turned into a comedy unintentionally, which actually made it entertaining for people because it was like outside of that, that movie is absolute garbage. But if you watch it as a comedy, it's absolutely hilarious. So it's the only saving grace that we have for that right there. So yeah, so we're here tonight to talk about our first two movies of the year. Actually, there's three movies that came out this weekend, but the third movie we're going to cover on Monday. I'll explain what's going to happen with that one at the end of the show. But I guess since Rick's still trying to get his stuff straightened out, we can go ahead and start off with Beekeeper and Jason Statham. Now, I have a couple of audio reviews that I just submitted to Bounding. Hopefully, they'll be on the Bounding YouTube channel over the next couple of days here. But I want to ask you this, Rob, because we've talked about this many times before, and I feel like this is a good jump off point. We've talked about the era of, I guess, the Hollywood movie star kind of being dead, and it feels like Jason Statham is pretty much like that last bastion of Hollywood action stars that you still have there. He's the one that still of the few guys where you still have his last name attached to a film. It's like, oh, okay, I'll see it, because I mean, basically, just watching him punch people in the face and kick people for a couple of hours. I mean, if that's really what you want, then I mean, he's gonna give it to you. So, does it feel like he's one of the last action stars out there? What's your general thoughts on Jason Statham as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, he is. He's along there like with Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves, guys that are actually willing to do stunts on some level. I mean, I don't know if Statham is as physical as those other guys, but he look, I never watched the Transporter movies, so Jason Statham, like he's fine, you know what I mean? Like, but there's a certain type of cliched action movie that he's going to be a part of, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And it can be like above average, it can be, okay, or it can be really bad. You know what I mean? For the most part, that's kind of how I feel about him. However, I will say this, over the last 3 or 4 years, I have felt like he has almost taken on a more like 70s type of action hero thing, like the stoic hero who puts a lot on himself, who might burdened by a secret, by something in his past, and that's actually more interesting to me, and that's movies he can carry more of, where it's like Wrath of Man, that Guy Ritchie movie that wasn't silly, like
Mm-hmm.
Snatch, or what is it, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, those kinds of funny Cockney gangster movies. These were more serious, kind of like genre action thriller kind of movies, more of like the smaller kind of crime movies from the 70s feel. And like I said, with Wrath of Man, even in comedies, stuff like what was that, Operation Fortune? I know you didn't care for it, but I actually thought he was pretty good in that, where he showed he can be the action guy, but also play comedy off of it as well. Which I think actually helped him with something like The Beekeeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that he's definitely capable, but I think that the project has to be right for him, because we've seen that over the past couple of years, but also he's languishing in the Fast and Furious franchise for whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's a nice paycheck, but it's like, you're more talented than what they're having you do here.
Yeah, and my general feelings on Jason Statham is that he's kept a close relationship with a lot of the guys that he's done like his better work with. Like obviously, him and Guy Ritchie still have a very strong relationship. We talked about Raver-Lampman. Raver-Lampman was one of my top movies a number of years ago. Like I said, it was one of those where it was straightforward without having kind of to be more of a goofy type of action movie or more that's like a little bit more lighthearted. Like he just played like a downright guy dealing with the death of his son and just wants revenge, and it was played straight and played pretty strongly there, and I actually really like what he did there in that film. And like I say, he's one of the few names out there where it's like I will at least check out what he does. Like he's not going to do anything new. Like at this point, I think he's like what 56 years old. So I mean, if you know what you're going to get out of Jason Statham, I mean that's pretty much what you're paying your ticket to go see. He's not going to be in any Oscar bait type of movies. He'll occasionally a couple of years, like I said, he'll work with Guy Ritchie or like another Matthew Vaughn or something like that every couple of years in like a bigger name film. But I mean, he's pretty much found his lane, and that's what he's going to do. And I say more power to him. And I was going to shoot over to our buddy Rick here. It's like he's moving to another side of the room at the moment, so we'll get it back here in a second. But shout out to everyone joining us here at the moment. We got Alice versus Evil joining us right now. Henry Thrawn joining us at the moment as well. We have Michael joining us here. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, and we're on Twitch all at the moment. I see Kirk over there on our Rumble side right now. And then we probably got some people joining us in our X too. So once I Rick settles into his side of the room, I guess we'll bring in him. But that brings us into the Beekeeper, and this is the first movie that we're reviewing this year. And like I said, if you've seen a lot of Jason Statham style of movies, you've seen a lot of them, some better than others. I know there was what was it, The Mechanic, that came out a few years ago. I think it was Jessica Alba was even in that one. That one was not too good. Definitely something I wouldn't write too far home about. Like I said, we have seen good movies with him. I believe the last time we've seen him was Operation Fortune, which is a movie that came out last year. And I can't remember. I think you gave that one a generally positive review. Did you?
Yeah, no, it was actually it actually made my top 15 if I had a top 15. It just, Aubrey Plaza kind of overstays her welcome. She's annoying. But I thought it was a pretty good comedy in a year where there's not much to really write home about in that category. So I had a good time with it.
All right. Well, here we go. We're gonna go take two on Rick. So let's see how well this goes. Rick, can you hear us now? Rick. I think he literally froze again in a second.
Well, yes, I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we have you.
Yeah.
There.
Well,
I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry, I had to move to charge the phone. I'm using this my first phone. My first phone thingamabob.
Yeah, obviously we've had a lot of false starts with you tonight.
Up.
I'm not sure what your
I don't know
internet
what's
connection
going on.
is. I still think he's like 5 seconds behind us, but we'll work on that as of course the show goes on here. There's a rooftop. I thought Rick was Asian. It should be good with electronics. No, he's Hispanic. He is not Asian. That was only for our anime intro that we did a couple weeks ago.
Would be Spencer. That would not.
Yeah, there's a clear delay here. We'll work on fixing that one here, but. So let's talk about the Beekeeper, and kind of the plot of this one is that once again, Jason Statham is playing a man from a very secretive government organization. So pretty much the plot of every like action government spy film you've ever heard of in your entire life. So he's not doing anything new here. He's part of a group called the Beekeepers now. And kind of the idea of the Beekeepers is what we've seen before. These are the people you call when the government wants something done, but they don't want it on their books, right? So it's a secret organization, and essentially what happens here is that he's living out on, I want to say something like a ranch. I want to say it's a farm, but living out on a ranch. He's basically collecting honey from bees, doing what we like to call honest work, what we like to say here. And he's living with, or at least living next to Felicia Rashad, who's in the movie at the very beginning. Apparently, there was some kind of relationship that was established before the film. We don't really get that deep into it, but apparently, she helped him out throughout the course of that. So he considers her to be, a good friend. And all of a sudden, she's just on the phone and like on the computer, and her computer stops working. And it's one of those, "Hey, your computer has been hacked. Call this number right now if you want it to go away." And we've all seen those scams. Those scams have been along for at least 20, 25 years now. It's not anything new, but of course, a lot of naive people tend to fall for these scams, even to this very day. So she calls the number, think that she's getting some kind of like tech help, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they pretty much scam her and clean out all of her bank accounts, all of her private accounts, rob her of at least a couple $1,000,000 when it was all said and done. And they celebrate because they got a big scam, and she's like, "Oh no, my life is ruined." So what does she do? She goes into the next room and shoots herself in the head and goes bye bye. Jason Statham comes in. And then all of a sudden, some FBI agent who turns out to be the daughter of Felicia Rashad comes in as well. This is this big investigation. Turns out they did confirm it was a suicide, but Jason is obviously very, very upset about this, or what I should call him by his screen name, Adam Clay, because that's a very generic action name there. He's very, very upset about the fact that he lost his good friend. He's going out against the people who did this, and they're having like a huge fishing farm here, I should say. Where they just scam a bunch of people. He's like, "You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and burn this whole thing to the ground. All of you people should probably get out because I really don't care whether you live or die," because he's a man on the mission. And that's kind of the setup here of this film. So I guess we could start off with you here, Rob, since you watched this film. Like I said, there's really nothing like original here. Like, you're not going to get anything groundbreaking as far as like the storyline goes. But did you find it enjoyable enough that the lack of originality wasn't as much of a factor for you? What was kind of your take, at least on the setup of the premise of this movie?
I think that the setup is actually the weakest part of this movie. The fact that it succeeds despite that is kind of amazing, because it's very cliche ridden, very cliche oriented. There's very little time where you're set up for a relationship with these characters. It's very thin, frankly. But I'm okay with that because it's a genre movie, and like you need to kind of quick move things pretty quickly. And it is what it is. Like some of the expositional dialogue from the daughter and Jason Statham's character is kind of clumsy, where you learn about his backstory and her backstory and why, like, "Oh, she loved my brother because he would mow the lawn and I just was an FBI agent." Like, some of that shit was really clumsy. Like, oh, I get it. You're creating a reason for these characters to have, stakes and for you to care about them and things like that. So I honestly thought it was a little clumsy, but get it out of the way, kind of get the story going. I thought it was fine. I didn't think it was glaringly bad or anything. It's just, the kind of stuff you run into with these types of movies.
I will say this. Like I said, the premise here is kind of weak, but one thing I will give it credit for is that it doesn't drown on it too much. Like, it establishes itself very quickly and then just moves on. It's like, here's basically all you need to know about the two characters involved, and let's just go straight into the story, because they know that everyone's here for like the action, everyone's here for kind of the entertainment aspect of this. So let's not drill on to like, we don't need to go all the way back to back in 1994 when these two first, like, we don't need to do all that. It's like, they were friends, she's dead, he wants revenge. That's all you need to know, and then just move on here. The first thing that I pointed out here is that the introduction of two characters here. One character I think was really well done, and another character I felt like probably should have been removed from this film altogether. The first one is obviously FBI agent Veronica Parker, who's played by Raver-Lampman here. And like I said, she plays the daughter of Felicia Rashad's character. I did not like her character like at all. I don't think that she was ever believable as an FBI agent. It was weird the way that they was presenting her in this film, is that they thought that in some instances that she was going to be like this too cool for school, like, super nerd, like this FBI agent who's just, I guess, too good at her job or something like that. They were trying to go for some kind of angle with her, but she doesn't have the personality to pull that off on the screen. So, and then her lack of personality quietly throughout the film. It's like every time they go to her and her partner, I guess you can say here, it felt like the film just comes to like a screeching halt, and then it has to like pick up the momentum that it establishes with Jason Statham's character. So she was the character that I didn't like. Then the other character who I did like, who we'll talk about kind of more in depth here, is Josh Hutcherson, I believe his name is, the kid from the Hunger Games who plays Derek in the film. He's the villain, and he's like this weird, I think, mix between like Logan Paul and like Hunter Biden, the way he was presented here in this film. And obviously, there was an article, I think Variety just ran it a second ago, talking about, oh, well, the conservatives think that this movie is about the Bidens. It was like, not really, even though you guess you can say that the president was kind of a stand-in for Hillary, but she was a little too nice. People didn't want her dead, but we'll get to that in a second. But I guess she started kind of the supporting characters of this film. Like, what did you think of Emmy here and her role in the film? And then we can jump over to Josh and his part.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I mean, there's a moment when she's actually like, I can't believe I'm in the middle of all this, but what the hell? They kill my mother. Like, I just, there's things like that throughout the movie where you're just like, okay, and they do try to kind of make her she really is a supporting character, but they also kind of try to shoehorn her in, especially towards the end, as like, as she's the hero too, or like she's the witness to Jason Statham's heroism and the mark he made despite going against the the government on a certain level.
They try to cheat. They try to like treat her like she was kind of like a marquee name in the movie as well. When it's like you're just like cannon fodder, like secondary like protagonist. Like, that's really all you are, and you're not even that entertaining to earn that role. This is why I thought there was a big disconnect with what they were trying to establish for her throughout the film.
And it wasn't a big deal, but in the beginning, she's like, this big white guy's in my house. And it's like, first of all, Jason Statham is pretty small. Like, you know what I mean? He's like dangerous and stuff. I totally get that. But as size, he's pretty small. He's not a big guy. So that was kind of like, all right, like they moved past it pretty quick. So she didn't annoy me too much, but I definitely noticed some things where it was like, okay, this is, luckily, this movie's very entertaining, or else this would be glaring.
Yeah.
And then
they tried to make her. I was just going to say, like, they tried to make her quirky and kind of endearing. And it's like there's something a disconnect there that I don't think you guys realize or understand quite well. I mean, it's just not really working out the way it should be.
Yeah, and Josh Hutcherson actually, I almost want to say was I can't believe I'm going to say this. I thought that he did the better job of the two between him and Bill Skarsgård and John Wick 4 last year, where he kind of annoyed me with his over the top sort of quality, where Hutcherson did a great job just kind of being like a minimalist piece of shit guy who's evading, responsibility for any of the shit show he's responsible for. And he was pretty entertaining. Just and it has that horror movie setup where there are awful people who you're just waiting for terrible things to happen, and they're highly entertaining when they do. So there is that payoff too.
Yeah, like I said, I really did dig his character here, because one of these films that when you have a kind of a more generic style like action movie, you really do need crafty, over the top characters to kind of make it more enjoyable. And I think that he did do a very good job. Like, one thing I give this film credit for is that it really did a good job of making you hate the villains, like making the audience like really invested in hating the characters here. Because like I said, you're talking about essentially a group of people who are running a scam mill, right? I mean, I talked about this in a film that I reviewed late last year called No More Bets. It was in my top 10 best movies of the year. And kind of like what they were doing there, it's like, hey, we're doing online gambling, but we're fixing the odds behind the scenes so that you lose like a whole bunch of money. This one's just more of like kind of like the outward type of scam, or outright scams, like something you would more see like an Indian farm more than a U.S. farm, for being completely honest with ourselves here. But it's like you say you're picking on people who either don't know any better, the naive, the disabled, or you're just going with a bunch of elderly people who don't know how computers work and scamming them out of their life savings. So it's like everyone heard sort of stories like this, and you say you're picking on literally the weakest people in society. I think that makes the audiences make you it puts you in a position where Jason Statham actually punches you in the face. Like there's an emotional investment into it. Like you actually want to see these characters like get their ass kicked and get their just reserves, which is exactly what the film delivers here. And like I said, with Josh and his character, like I said, he's playing like, you know, he's playing like this Logan Paul type of character, like personality wise, but at the same time, because of his connections, he can also be like anywhere from Logan Paul to Hunter Biden, because his setup here is that he's the kind of the kingpin and involved in all of these scam mills. He's the guy at the very top, but he also happens to be the son of the president of the United States, who we find out later on, who is a woman in this film too, who ironically looks a lot like Hillary Clinton, even though she has a clear British accent that she tries to suppress throughout the film and doesn't do a very good job at doing so. So it does add a few extra layers here, but like I said, I do like the analogy here. It was like, you know, with the Beekeepers, it's like, yeah, the Beekeepers doesn't stop until he's completed his job, which basically means that he's going to kill every person at the top who's involved in this entire scam. And that happens to be this guy right here. So I think it does a good job of wanting people to see him get his ass kicked and get killed in the course here. But like I said,
Well,
you were
I
putting
think
over
that
Josh.
there's
Go ahead.
no. Well, I was going to say that I think that there is a certain delight in happen to them, where people, I think people know or people have been victimized of this kind of scam. So
Mm-hmm.
seeing Jason Statham take these people down and take down the mastermind behind it, I think there's some sort of almost cathartic glee in it. I think people, it would enjoy this, because I think this is a kind of a, I don't want to say routine crime, but it's something that people have gone through or know someone who has gone through.
Yeah. Like
You
I
could
said,
apply it to telemarketers. I mean, telemarketers calling during dinner. I mean, that's been a thing for for 40 years.
yeah.
And I
Oh
know
yeah.
that that's not the same thing, but you know, you take it a step further, and it's somebody who this organization who's scamming the most vulnerable. So
Well,
there
I
there
think
absolutely is. And then the type of violence that's tied to it is just the cherry on top.
oh yeah, like when the henchman or like the other guy gets tossed off the bridge. That was, yeah, violent and fun. Violent and
Mm-hmm.
fun. Yeah, a good description for this movie altogether.
Yeah.
Just violent and fun.
One of the few missteps in this film, however, I feel like was Jeremy Irons, because Jeremy Irons is obviously a great actor and he's in this movie, and it feels like he was supposed to play a bigger role in the overall story, but it's like once his introduction is done, like he really doesn't come back in a significant way till the very end, and even then, just kind of feels like they kind of dropped the ball with him. Like I was expecting like a little bit more, but it's like he just gets his essentially his setup and then really nothing else after that. Did you kind of feel that same way with
Is
him?
he, well, is he the ex-husband to the president?
He's the dad of Josh Hutcherson's character. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, look, the way I saw his performance is that he's gonna just have fun with this. He's gonna take the paycheck. He doesn't really care. Like, yeah, I'm here. I'm gonna be in an action movie. I'm gonna get money out of it. Well, I didn't mind. I thought it was fine. He knew what it was. I think film was. I know. I think a lot of people know what this film was. So they went and they gave the performances that they were expected to give. So I
Yeah.
didn't mind Jeremy. I enjoyed it.
I actually liked his performance, and I think he's really the bridge between Josh Hutcherson's character and then his mother, because you get these sort of expositional dialogue where it's like, your mother asked me to look after you, and you don't know who his mother is yet. And that's what I wanted to say too, is that they do a good job of sort of hiding the villain's identity of who he is, who he's connected to. So you get oh, he's tied to Jeremy Irons, who's the head of the CIA, and you know, who retired to sort of give you this entree into the world. And then you find out, you know, kind of going into the last 45 minutes to an hour, it's like, oh, he's the president's son on top of it. His mom's the president. So I liked it. I think Jeremy Irons has a lot of charisma. He, you know, and he can really sell. This is what I want to say about the Beekeeper too. The story is ridiculous. The plot is absolutely ridiculous. However, the actors that sell the dramatic dialogue for you to buy in, that's why you have Jeremy Irons there. That's why Jason Statham, at least in this role, I think gives a pretty good performance. It's like they make it real, even if it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like it's not like break the fourth wall, ridiculous funny. It's kind of like darkly funny because of the violence happening to the people on screen. You know, it's like a little joke is made, but it fits with what's happening. It doesn't deter from it. So I think Jeremy Irons actually is perfect in what he does here. But yeah, he's absolutely a plot device. He's absolutely like not a fully fleshed out character. Does he get killed by Jason Statham? Or does he just disappear at the end? Because he's at that party.
I think
He
gets
hurt him,
injured.
but he didn't kill him. Yeah,
trying to block the door.
Oh, the hand. Remember?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is just more of like a get out of my way type of thing, rather than, you know, I really want to hurt this dude to begin with. By the way, this character here, who was the guy who was running the first scam farm, am I the only person who thought that this guy looked like a heterosexual Nick Fuentes? Was that the only one thinking this, like watching him throughout the entire film?
He definitely does. I think Boyd Garnett, because he says it's Boyd, and then he says Mr. and it's like Garnett.
Yeah, exactly. Like once he starts getting like his ass kicked throughout the film, and like I said, it was, like I said, thoroughly entertain him. Like watching him, just like he comes in here thinking that he's just gonna like shoot up the whole place, and then when Stace starts like killing everyone there, like he just turns like a complete bitch throughout the entire film. But I actually found him highly entertaining there, what he was doing that portion. Then, like I said, you had these two characters here too, which it felt like their only purpose was them trying to, I guess, figure out what the audience already knew up to a certain point. It wasn't like they were like revealing any like new information throughout these two. So it's like, I just feel like if these two were maybe like just removed from the film altogether, maybe it would have flowed a little bit differently.
It was funny though, because she's about to read another factoid, and he's like, "Oh no, I was enjoying my thoughts." like shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
I took him to be more of the comic, you know, a stab at a comic relief character. It was like, oh, he's going to kind of say something quippy or funny, not like quippy Jason Statham style, but more like, oh, well, okay, this is
one thing that I did like about his character, he was like the only one that was kind of aware, like, look, we work for the FBI. If we get too deep into this thing, like, we're going to be in a position where we're going to be the ones getting killed. It's like, we're talking about uncovering like government organizations that even we shouldn't know about. It's like, we may want to just dial back just a little bit here before we get so deep into it, they're going to make us disappear as well. And I don't know, she just felt like she was just like so arrogant. She didn't even like once consider that, hey, maybe this conspiracy's a little bit too big for our bridges here. Maybe we should dial this one back.
You know, she started out investigating her, I guess, her mother's death or the circumstances behind it. I don't know if any law enforcement would allow that, but you know, you just roll with it. I don't know. You guys know this better than I do.
And then I have to go show you this part too. So at one point, Jason Statham finds, I guess, like one of the big donator buildings, and that's the one that he wants to, I guess, break into. This is the one in what was it? I think they said it was Boston, right? Was that Boston?
Boston.
So here you have, like I said, set up where you have like the FBI in full SWAT uniform. You have this private security unit, which I guess is directly related to the government as well. So it's like they're pretty much taking over like the entire building, like making sure Jason Statham can't get in. I do love the fact that he literally just walks in from the front door. It gets like all the way up there, like literally just like walks up there, takes out like 10 guys like hand to hand who are like FBI trained SWAT agents, and then just really just walks in and starts causing all kinds of havoc. It's like that there was no way that they were going to stop this guy. He was almost like the juggernaut at this point in the film.
Yeah, he was talking about how he's going to smoke him out. There's no rear entrance, and like they're all looking for him. They're all like, okay, where is this guy? And he literally just walks up to them and just starts kicking their ass.
Yeah. I mentioned this character here. Like I said, she was the one playing, I guess, Madam President throughout this film. Now, like I said, I was just so distracted by the fact that she was clearly trying to sound American, but like I said, that British accent kept like floating to the top, where it was like very noticeable here. It's like couldn't find like anybody else who knows this. I know, like, especially with English actors, when they come to the United States, I guess the first accent they gravitate to when they come here is like a Southern accent, because I guess with their dialect it's easier to pick up a Southern accent for them. But we just try to do like a straight up like Washington DC like blue blood type of accent, it's like it doesn't work out very well here. But obviously her character, you thought that she was going to be like this evil Hillary Clinton type of character, and comes to find out that she really didn't know what was going on to begin with. Like they just played her as if she was just completely naive throughout the entire bit. I guess it had to do with the fact that because Josh is playing Hunter Biden, that if they made her Hillary Clinton, it'll be a little bit too on the nose, and they didn't want to like upset the people in Hollywood that were backing this, or maybe some of the reviewers that were going to take offense to this. But what did you think of, I guess, her contributions here to the script?
I mean, she was fine. I mean, she's really, again, she's another character who's a plot device, and you're kind of, you're the audience does not really know her culpability in terms of this criminal organization or whatever. And the final scene plays itself out that way, where it's like, who's the real bad guy? Who's kind of like at the head of this. So I did kind of think that was interesting. That's probably the only part of all the beekeeping and hive bullshit rhetoric that we have to put up for an hour and 45 minutes. Like,
yeah,
that's probably the only part of it that kind of pays off or makes sense or solidifies in my mind from trying to think about the movie. So again, she's a necessary character to tell the story. I didn't necessarily think her performance was great, but she wasn't asked to do that much either. You know what I mean? She's a concerned mother, leader of the free world, potential criminal mastermind, so.
They can all be the same. You could be a criminal mastermind and concerned mother. Why can't you?
Well, I mean,
well, I did.
Like I said, I think we know some people who fit that bill, but like I said, it's too on.
No, I do agree with you, Jacob, that the accent. I mean, bless her for trying. She really did try to sound American, but it was pretty clear she was not. And I love the fact that not Hunter Biden, because that wasn't Hunter Biden, not Hunter Biden, threatened to assassinate the president of the United States. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
His own mother, by the way.
Yes. And so.
But then again, that's why you don't let crackheads into the White House. At least we don't have to worry about that in real life, right?
No, because we know that some random tourist just left it there in the Situation Room.
Yeah, it just got there. Here's one thing towards the end here. There's elements to this that I like, and elements I have to agree is pretty ridiculous. I do like how when they were setting this whole thing up, they kind of had Jason Statham playing like Agent 47, like kind of in the Hitman games where he's like changing his costume from like one stage throughout another, like to blend in. So I actually thought like the when he was getting into the White House, he's like trying to blend in with like the Secret Service. I thought that part was pretty well done. I mean, you could say, like I said, some parts of it is ridiculous, which it is, but I kind of like what they were going with here. At the same time, it does get to a certain point where you get like a little bit later on into the sequence as well, where you start asking yourself, okay, look, I know that they're trying to say that, look, whatever Jason Statham wants to kill, like you're not going to stop him, right? That's kind of the takeaway here. But it gets to a point where when you start firing shots at like the front yard of the front lawn of the White House, and somehow nobody can take you down. It's like, do you know like what the absolute shit stir you would cause? It's like literally like shooting people in the front of the White House. Like there's literally snipers like up on the roof. Like there's no way that he would have gotten in at that point. It's like I think it did a little too far into ridiculous, especially with like this character here, who's like the one guy who was supposed to. Apparently, he killed a beekeeper, but only barely. He or she took his leg and whatnot, and then he was kind of a crazy over the top character as well. However, I did like their fight sequence there because it was pretty brutal in that aspect. But what was kind of your thoughts generally on the setup for the ending?
Yeah, that their fight was kind of like the action movie variant of a similar scene in David Fincher's The Killer from last year, which was a very brutal hand-to-hand knife scene. There's a few fights between him and certain opponents that feel like they're comic book X-Men fights. Maybe David Ayer has X-Men in his future. By the way, return to form for David Ayer. I'm happy for him. The Suicide Squad was a disaster. But there are these weird remnants of like, because the action is so over the top, it's almost like superheroes fighting. You know what I mean? But yeah, no, it's, you have to give the hero a big bad guy to fight, who he can't just, crush on a whim. But no, I'll say this about a lot of the fights and a lot of the action. It's highly stylized, fun. You feel like every kill is a creative endeavor watching this. And that's the thing, is it doesn't feel airless like a Marvel movie. It doesn't feel like it's stupid, bloated, Fast and Furious movie. It actually feels like the people who made it cared and wanted the audience to have a good time. And I think part of that is, again, it's kind of giving him giving Jason Statham those worthwhile action set pieces, good choreography, good good stunts. So and I think it shows in the final product.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed here too is that the writer of this one, who I want to make sure, Kurt Wimmer, he was one of 3 writers for Expendables 4, which came out a few months ago. But we all talked about that movie. That was a creative mess beforehand too. Obviously, he didn't have to work with such restraints in this film. I think it definitely helps, I guess, limit the focus and narrow down the focus where you're not dealing with 3 different writers, plus you have the director, plus you're still trying to deal with the Sylvester Stallone drama going on behind the scenes about whether they're trying to take the franchise away from him or not and give it to Megan Fox. So removing all of those things out of the story, it definitely helped things be a lot more streamlined. This is a very streamlined action film. It's like it's almost 2 hours long. It's not quite 2 hours, but it doesn't really feel like it's dragging at any point of it. It's like they're very good at just like moving over and keeping the audience's focus. So it's not so you're not essentially losing your audience and people are looking at their watches and are dragging along. It's like the film moves very well. I think it's pretty much well written in a lot of aspects here too. The action is very good. It's like, look, if you're looking for an enjoyable movie to watch in movie theaters right now, you know what you're going to get out of Jason Statham movies. He's one of the few action stars that we have left. He's got a good track record in this genre here. Look, I ended up leaving this film thinking to myself that, yeah, there's things you can nitpick about like the plot or whatnot, but like I said, who really cares that much about plot in in the action film unless one, it's really good, or else it's really bad. Otherwise, you don't really pay too much attention to it as far as this genre goes. And for me, I just left this film ultimately enjoying it far more than I didn't like some of the nitpicky stuff here. So I'll go ahead and shoot this one over to you guys for your final thoughts. For me, this is a very good start for 2024 here. If you're looking for a movie to watch right now, there's not a whole bunch of them out in theaters right now to watch. If you're looking for something to enjoy, this is probably the best one you're going to get at the moment. I give this one a solid 3.5 out of 5 for me. So Rob, I'll go with you, then we'll go Rick.
Yeah, I also gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I was pretty surprised how much I like this one. Jason Statham action movies are pretty standard. You know what you're going to get, but I really think he's done a good job choosing projects that are a little bit better in terms of quality and certainly their execution. So, it's very weird because this is released by Miramax, who I don't know who owns Miramax anymore.
I think it's Amazon actually. Though
Amazon.
This is,
You're
yeah,
right,
this
because
is
it was Amazon MGM logo
Yep.
to open it. But there's this producer who worked for them up until they folded, named Bill Block, who longtime screenwriter, producer. He got fired actually as the CEO of Miramax before they got bought by Amazon, which is makes sense. You want to put your own guy in there. But I'm happy for him just on a professional level that he had one win here before he went out as CEO. But yeah, as a whole, this is a fun movie. This is something that you can go. I got my free popcorn and free soda for my birthday, and I just had a really good time. The kills are fun, they're entertaining, they're creative. You love seeing the bad guys get their just desserts, and it's, I don't want to call it a hard R movie, you know what I mean, because the act over the top, but they do not pull any punches with the violence. Like
No.
it definitely feels genuine from that point of view. So
And I feel like, just real quick, I feel like that a lot of action films have done this ever since the John Wick movies, because it feels like now every action film feels like it has to like match up to John Wick. So the action has become a lot more brutal over the last like 10 years or so than it was probably years prior.
Yeah. But I think it does a really good job with it, and overall, it's a really good movie. It's a really good like action movie. Going to the movies, having a good time. So definitely recommend it.
Yep. Rick, do you have a final thought on it?
Oh yeah, I'm probably going to be a little harsher on you guys. I'm going to give it a 3, but I can't fault it for entertaining me. It moved well. The action was fun. I like that the guy just went in, did his job, killed people, but gave them a chance to escape if they were not responsible, and just move the story along. I can't fault it for being entertaining. It's entertaining, it's fun, it knows what it's going to do. You get a certain thrill. I did, out of seeing him take down something that is kind of relatable. because you don't, it's something that, like I said, that people have either experienced or know people who have experienced it. So you get this sort of cathartic thrill out of seeing someone take down people who are taking advantage of others who don't know any better or who are just hoodwinked. So I
Mhm.
really like this movie. I was entertained. It knows what it is. Go see it. Go see it. That's all I'm going to tell you that. Just go see it. You'll like it. You'll enjoy it. And happy
Yeah.
birthday, Robert.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a free Coke at Regal too. I'm not saying anything to me, but that's fine.
You'll like it more than what I ended up having to see. So there's that.
Oh, stop with your whining. You're whining and you're complaining.
And yeah,
But
the original is good, but it people, it's like Bridesmaids, where people make it out to be like one of the great all-time comedies, and I'm like, stop, please, just stop.
well, I mean, since we're kind of wrapped up there with Beekeeper, let's jump over to Mean Girls. I want to say this is 2 because it's weird because it's not a sequel, it's not really a remake, it's kind of like a soft reboot that's like also a musical. So okay, so here's how this film came about. We all know Mean Girls from 2004, right? That was the film that launched Lindsay Lohan at the time into kind of like the A-list of young Hollywood stars. Now, as quickly as she got there, she fell down just as quickly. It was like Mean Girls was like literally the height of her career, and then about a year later, like after what was it, Herbie, Fully Loaded, it was like all downhill from there. It was like she was basically partying every single night in Hollywood, getting arrested, doing blow, doing booze, and all kinds of things. And she never managed to pull herself up after that. It was like her career was pretty much dead there. But this was a film that, I would say a lot of people have very, very fond memories of, especially in like the 2000s, the mid 2000s here. A lot of people did elevate their career based on this film. You had Rachel McAdams, you had was it Leslie Chaplin had a big push after this one. Lacey Chabert, Amanda Siegfried. So there was some big name people attached to that first movie there. However, with that said, I rewatched this movie not too long ago, and when I rewatched it, it did not hold up for me like at all. Like when I'm watching it, kind of like in a much older perspective than I was watching it then. Because look, if I'm being completely honest with you, the only reason I was watching it back in like 2004 was because Lindsay Lohan and Lacey Ray were hot, and that was pretty much the only pass that I gave to it. But when you strip that away and you just like view it as like a film itself, it's like a lot of it is just like feels like a very bad SNL skit that just goes on for like a little too long. But like I say, you can't deny the impact that it had here. So here we are in 2024. Because Lindsay Lohan's career fell off a cliff, they never got a proper sequel to this movie, which I'm pretty sure they wanted to do at some point, but she was a mess at that point, so they could never do a sequel. So now here we are 20 years later. It's like, okay, let's do a reboot, another film, but hey, let's make it a musical. Let's go base it off of the Broadway play that how many people have actually seen the Mean Girls Broadway play? How many people even knew there was a Broadway play to begin with? Exactly, and that's what you're basing this entire film off of. But before we get into this film, I do want to just come back and kind of retrospective that first film, because I know Rick here didn't see the first Mean Girls movie, so that's probably why none of this made any sense to him. But Rob, you have seen Mean Girls before. What's kind of your general thoughts on the first Mean Girls movie, the one that started this whole trend?
Yeah, one of my biggest crushes of all time is Lizzie Kaplan, who does not look attractive in that movie at all. But
Yeah,
no,
she
yeah, no,
she definitely grew up after that film.
yeah, I was 15, and Lindsay Lohan was really hot. But yeah, you're pretty much right. I mean, it's SNL writers. It's Tina Fey, I think, wrote it with Paul Feig, who who went on to do the terrible Ghostbusters movie. So it's like,
Yeah, exactly.
I think if for its time and whatever, I think it's fine. I think it's entertaining. Whatever it's about. But again, it's just like it's like when The Devil Wears Prada came out. I was like, it's a fucking movie about the soullessness of the fashion industry. Why do you care? You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
this is
it's
about
very
like
niche.
your like petty little female world, and that's fine. Look, if you want to watch a movie about that, that's fine. The Notebook was another big one that I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? Anyway, back to Mean Girls. It's fine. It has a lot of talented young actresses in it who went on to have much bigger careers. it's a shame what happened to Lindsay Lohan. She was talented. She just, I think her parents really fucked her up, and she just had no guidance. But yeah, it's, looking back, it's interesting. It's 20 years old. But if you told me that like a remake was being done, or a sequel that's a musical, I have absolutely no interest.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Like with Lohan, I guess at the time we didn't realize just how screwed up her parents actually were until like a few years later. And by the time we figured that out, like she was already like in a point of pretty much no return, like at that point. But one thing about the first Mean Girls movie is that for me, like even from like that lens, I can always just see it as this is basically just like Tina Fey crying about her high school experience, because I'm pretty sure that she wasn't, the most popular kid growing up in high school. Maybe she got picked on a lot, and the whole kind of aura around this movie is that it's supposed to be relatable to a bunch of girls in their high school experience. And I just thought to myself, well, look, I'll say this here because I know not everyone had a great high school experience, but my high school experience wasn't nearly that bad. Like I had like one bad year, like in junior year, but outside of that, the other 3 years are like pretty solid. So I never got like the whole idea where people dreaded high school as much as they did. But like I said, apparently this appealed to a lot of other people that it didn't appeal to me. So there was a couple things working against it from that perspective. I don't know if you guys share any insight to high school experience.
I hated high school. This is fun. I
My high school
so
experience,
I,
well,
oh, go ahead. I'm so
my
sorry.
high school experience,
Yeah, he's 5 minutes behind.
my high school experience was much different than what I saw in the movie. I was the captain of the academic decathlon team, and I easily mixed with the jocks. There was no real separation. We knew each other. We had it wasn't the best time of my life, but it wasn't the worst time of my life either. So I didn't relate. I don't really relate to a lot of these high school movies where everything like so segregated and you have a lot of these little cliques. I mixed easily. I mean, I was usually with the academic decathlon team, and we had our own table. That is true, but by and large, it was not. It was never anywhere near the way it is in Mean Girls. At least this version. Although I think there was not a burn book, but a slam book. But I never really participated in it, so it
I
didn't
mean,
bother
we
me.
in my
All right.
high school, we never needed a slam book because we always just talk shit to each other's faces. So there was no purpose of like saying things behind people's back. I mean, if you had a problem, you just said it to the person. That, like I said, that's my high school. I went to some pretty shifty high schools back in retrospect. So I didn't have the upper middle class experience like some other people did. Um, there's
That
one
was
more point that
water,
I
not
want.
me.
There's one more point about the 2004 one before I jumped over here, but then literally just like slipped my mind as I was talking about it. But I guess we can hit back up here because we're basically doing the same thing. So apparently the big complaint that I've heard about people who have seen this film is that they went into it thinking that this was like a legitimate remake of Mean Girls, didn't realizing that this was a musical at all. Apparently the trailer didn't allude to people that this was a musical movie. They just thought that it was like a straight up like remake. So people went into this thinking that they were going to get a regular old comedy movie, and then like 2 minutes in, people are singing and no one knows exactly like why they're singing. It's like, oh, surprise, it's a musical. So let me ask you guys how you feel about musicals in general, because I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. I'm not a big fan of like any musicals to begin. Like it's just not my genre. It's like I'm not gonna like go home like singing the song like a fairy little princess or anything like that. So the whole genre to me is just kind of mostly a miss for the most part. Because I think the last musical that I somewhat enjoyed, which I know Rick hates, is La La Land, only because I like kind of the more of
It's
the
not a
style than the
musical.
actual musical. Yeah,
It's
sure.
not a
Well,
musical. La La
yeah,
Land is not a musical.
well, it won awards for a musical, so
You
you
don't
playing
need
to
much
the
for
It
a
doesn't
movie
crowd.
to
matter.
be a musical
Not
either, because if you perform, what is it? Perform a song that tells the story in any manner, it's technically a musical.
Yeah.
it's not a musical because none of the songs really move the plot forward. They just they just started singing and then they stopped after a while. Like there were not many songs, and I really don't remember. Well, I do remember a few, but it's not a musical. La La Land is not a musical any more than Glee is not a musical. It's not a musical show.
I mean, Glee just sucks ass. I mean, I
Yeah.
know a lot of people.
That is
I'll
true,
say
but
this.
many people think that Glee is a musical show. It's not. It's basically just taking pop songs and trying to ram them into a plot. La La Land is similar, although they did write songs specific for it, but it's not a musical because the songs do not really move the plot forward, do not express a lot of emotion of the characters. They're just there to say, "Oh, it's a musical."
Go ahead,
Ye-
Rob.
Yeah, no. So I have a weird and strained relationship with musicals because I too am not a big fan of them. I think telling the story through song is fucking stupid for the most part. It really is. It's just idiotic. Like if
Mm,
and again, I understand there's a great challenge to it, and certainly music itself is like I could never wrap my head around it. I think truly intelligent people, make music like that, compose music like that. I have a great appreciation for it, but it's never going to be what I like. My mom was very much into musical theater, which is why I have something of a background, knowledge background of that. But they've always been the hardest things to get into. Now, there are exceptions. There are musicals I love, like The Wizard of Oz. I don't know if Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is considered a musical, but I love that. I love Moulin Rouge. I like the 2004 Phantom of the Opera, which Rick makes fun of me for. But a lot of that music is written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, a part of the original show. So, but it just depends, and there'll be like the Random Doris Day musical. I really like, you know what I mean? But West Side Story, dance fighting. I'm sorry, that's so fucking stupid. You'll never be able to convince me that that's anything other than like, okay, I understand symbolically what you're going for here, but it's so idiotic. It looks so stupid. So there's things like that in musicals that I just can't do.
Unless we're talking about the knife fight from the Michael Jackson Beat It video, that is the only exception I will ever give to a dance fight in musical. So.
and that it should be pointed out that was directed by Martin Scorsese.
Mm-hmm.
The Thriller or the
Video.
Beat It video.
No, was it Beat It or
Yeah, it
Bad?
was
I'm sorry,
Beat
I'm
It.
thinking Bad. Bad, I think was directed. Sorry.
Okay.
So here we
I
are.
don't.
Well,
Let me
what?
just jump in here real quick. I like musicals, but I have to accept that they're not going to be grounded in reality. What I don't like is this trend of just taking movies and making them into musicals, like Mean Girls, like Heathers, like Rocky, like Beetlejuice. Um, you, you've had just do
The
not.
Spider-Man.
idea here is that we're not in a position to bring back the original stars to just do a sequel, but we need to, I guess, make it different. So it's like, oh, we'll just make it a musical because that's about as original as we can possibly come
But
up
the
with.
thing is, that a lot of current Broadway shows are adaptations, musical adaptations of films, and they just don't work. They don't work, and in this one, it doesn't work. We can get into it why I don't think it works, but here it doesn't work because you are trying to be too obvious about it. We'll get into that in a bit.
Yep. So I guess we should go ahead and at least introduce the people who are starring in this film. So this is I always struggle with her name because it's not an American name, but Rice is her name. She's an Australian actress. You may remember her as the little girl from what was the Nice Guys, the movie that you and Rob historically love. So she's playing the role of Lindsay Lohan in this film, playing the character of Cady. And then we also have what's her name here in this part here. So this is Renee Rapp playing the role of Regina George, the very popular character that was played by what's her name, Rachel McAdams in the first movie. So now she's playing Regina George here. Who else I want to make sure that I get these other two here. I gotta find the actual screen for them. So obviously Tim Meadows and Tina Fey
Tina
are back
Fey.
here, kind of like renewing their roles here in this film. Who else do we have here that's new? This girl, her name is Anna Tiki or Aven Tiki, something like that. She's like Indian, so can't really pronounce her first name here, but she's playing the new what's her name, Karen, who was played by Amanda Seyfried in the first film. and then I believe that the blonde girl is who's playing the Gretchen Reno. It's like Bebe Wood or something like that. Like I said, mostly people probably have never seen any of them outside of the one girl is playing Cady here. So Rick, let me ask you this question: as someone who has not seen the original Mean Girls film, what was your take on just the first 10 minutes of this movie? As someone who has absolutely no concept of this story whatsoever, because I'm gonna
Uh,
make a point here, but I want you to start off.
all right. Well, first, I do have a concept of it because even though I've never seen it, I am aware of certain parts of it. Like, yeah, like she was from Africa or she grew up in Africa and then came to the United States and found that high school is more animalistic than she imagined. And she has that naivete. So I did know parts of it, but not the whole thing. The first 10 minutes, I felt that a lot of things were being rushed to get to, I guess, the story. You rush through that part, like she has to go to America, and her mom says, "Okay, well, we're going to have to go," and then we get to the introduction of all the other characters. It's like really bang, 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 bang. For me, it didn't work, and it's interesting. I think there's a trend in modern day musicals where the first half is top loaded with songs, and then the second half maybe has one or two. So I don't know why you seem to just have a lot of songs in the very beginning, like two or three. I'm trying to see how
Because they have
many.
to establish early that, hey, this is a musical, this isn't a regular reboot or remake of the film. There's a musical film being played here.
Yeah, but you can space it out. You could have like a big musical opening, and I wasn't impressed with that very first opening. Not looking back. I'm assuming that's the name. No, not even that. It was a little intro from the two characters, the Janice and the guy who were doing some sort of like it. I thought it was like some sort of TikTok opening song, and that's why I was thinking they have to update a lot of things for the movie in 2024 because I figure in 2004 you wouldn't have a lot of people putting out their phones to videotape all these sort of things. And yeah, so I
Yeah, like I
wasn't
said,
particularly.
they definitely had to update it for modern times. I mean, even a modern audiences in some cases here as we get to it. But quick little shout out to Spencer, who's over on our Rumble chat right now, said that someone has really liked the original. He was insulted by the announcement of this, and then of course he just realized that that is a daughter from the Nice Guys as well. So, um, damn it, I literally was just gonna
We're
bring
talking
up
about
something.
something about the first 10 minutes, something that was
Oh,
gonna.
okay. So yeah, this is part of what I was gonna make here. So because you haven't seen the original movie, there's a lot of things that are probably lost on you on its concept, with the exception of the musical numbers that are thrown in like sporadically, right? This film is basically a shot for shot remake of Mean Girls, which means that there's kind of two problems happening here from the jump. Is that one, this whole film only works as a nostalgia trip for the first movie, right? The 2004 movie. So it's like when they're not doing like the musical numbers, the whole film plays out just as the original does. It's like I said, she comes from Kenya, she goes to a new school, she meets all the kids, she meets the plastics, and they grow in. It's like it's literally everything from in between there. It's like a shot for shot remake of the first film, with the exception. So what this film is really doing is that it's playing up to, I guess, more of the millennials out there who remembered the first Mean Girls and still want to see the first Mean Girls. But obviously, with a lot of the modern updates to the movie, they're trying to, I guess, market this towards like Generation Z, which obviously wasn't around to see the first Mean Girl. So this is kind of what I'm saying, talking about your problem with your marketing, or when you announce a movie and you're not really sure who your audience is, because what you do is that you're trying to placate the two different groups who are both going to have a conflict one way or another, because either the people who did see the original movie are going to watch this and be like, okay, there's really nothing original here, and I'm not really digging the whole musical scene, so I just rather watch the first movie that was actually good. And then if you're Gen Z and you're watching this, you're not really digging it. It's like this isn't going to inspire you to watch the first movie either. So you have a movie that's really struggling to figure out who exactly is your audience here. Like, because I would say the whole film kind of goes in a route of, hey, remember this line from the first movie? Remember this line from the first movie? Oh, remember this ironic quote from the first movie? It's like you have to watch the first movie to kind of understand anything that's going on here. Like, if you're somebody like Rick who refused to watch the first movie before watching this film, everything, all the references of this movie are going to go completely over your head because you didn't see the first movie. So that's kind of a problem here.
Yeah, you won't know what fetch means.
And why
It's not
fetch
a
is never
thing,
going to
okay?
happen.
Yeah, we know.
It's not a thing. It'll never be a thing. That I do know. Look, I decided not to because I wanted to just go in and see what the big deal was about, because I figured it was, I didn't figure it was going to be a shot for shot remake, but I figured it was going to stick to the actual original film. I didn't think it was going to try anything new. Moreover, what I kept thinking while watching the movie is that people who see this, I think, will get an idea of what the stage show is like. And many times the musical numbers would work on stage. They just don't work on film. You could have certain musical numbers. Let me see if I could find one, as I wrote this down. Like the Apex Predatory, when they're talking about how Regina's, no, not for Cady to become friends with Regina and the Plastics.
Yeah.
That I figured could work on stage when you have the other girls in the class kind of sing behind Cady and do the dancing behind her. It just doesn't work in the film version because I know that in a musical you're supposed to have some suspension of reality, but don't ask me to accept something as completely real and then the musical as completely fantastical. It's not going to work. So again and again, many of the musical numbers like Revenge Party and all of those, they would work great on the stage. They don't work well on film. I don't know how else to phrase it. And over and over and over. As for the movie, here's my quick take. I hated every single character in this movie. There's not one likable person. Um, Regina obviously is supposed to be like the evil person, but
Mm-hmm.
if this was exactly the same as the movie, Cady is, well, basically a bitch. Janice is an even bigger one. I think she's the real villain in this movie because
Especially in this
she
film, and
is
we'll talk
so
about that too. We'll get to
yeah,
that
but
in a second, but I'll pause that point because we will get back to that because I do want to talk about her character here for a second. But like I said, there's a couple of other issues here with this film that doesn't translate when you're doing a shot for shot remake because, like I said, as we talked about at the beginning of the review here, the whole purpose of this film was used to essentially as a jumping point for Lindsay Lohan's career. Like that was kind of the whole point of having like the first movie. It's like, oh, we can get Lindsay Lohan to be the star of this movie and we can use this to elevate her and elevate the film in the process. In this film, you don't really have anyone who you're elevating here. Like you don't have anybody who's kind of already a name star. You don't have anyone who's going to be a star as a result of this movie. So that's, you're already at a step down from the first film just based on that alone. Now, apparently, the girl who plays Regina George in this movie, Renee Rapp, she also played Regina George in the Broadway play. So this is another actor who they brought in from Broadway to play the big screen adaptation of this, which I think they did this before with Dear Evan Hansen, whatever that movie is called, and that movie was a big giant pile of shit. So this film isn't nearly as bad as that one, but it's still kind of the same idea. It's like, oh, well, it worked on the stage, so obviously it'll work on the big screen. And it's like, I don't think that's how it's going to work this time around. So, and then another thing, which is lost in translation, is that this film really doesn't do as good of a job to explain the character motivations as the first one did. Because, like I said, Cady here, Rice, her character in this film, in the first film, she was clearly just a naive girl who got caught up in somebody else's plan and didn't realize she was losing herself slowly as the film went on. And here, they make her seem a lot more vindictive in this film than they did in the original film. So yeah, if you're watching this one and getting kind of her concept of her character, you would think that yeah, you're just as bad as Regina George, right? Like that's pretty much the idea that you're getting here. And then another thing, outside of Regina George, outside of Regina George,
and
quote unquote,
and her rise to power just seemed very quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, they missed a whole lot of steps from the original, that killer character development, because they had to like do the whole thing with the musical numbers, which didn't really work out very well either. And then you talked about the character of Janice. Now, if you don't remember, Janice was the character that Lizzie Chaplin played in the original film, right? And in this film, she's played by, I can't pronounce her name. It's like Atuli or something like that. She's the girl from Moana. If you remember the Moana Disney movie from several years ago, she's the girl who played that. She's playing Janice in this movie. And in this film, you can tell there's a disconnect, because the sense of the story is that they want the audience to, I guess, identify with her character. However, her character is just as insufferable as everybody else in here, that she's walking around like somehow she's the only character that doesn't have any faults whatsoever, and that's just complete BS, and it doesn't work in translation like for this film. It's like, I actually ended up hating her character more than we were supposed to hate Regina George's character, because at least Regina in this film, there is like little instances where she does show a somewhat of a human side. But Janice in this film, she's like just one of those like perma victim type of peoples, where it's like everyone screwed me over, it's everybody else's fault but me. And then you get to a very narcissistic number with her, where it's like everyone's trying to like confess all the bad things that they've done to each other, like the whole gym scene, and all of a sudden she just breaks into like a musical number basically saying F everyone else, I'm not going to do what you tell me and whatnot. And it kind of overshadows the bit where Regina gets run over by the bus, because the whole focus is on her instead of the other character. And it's like, look, I get that you're still trying to like prop her up to be more of a co-protagonist in this film, but her presentation in this movie, it's like they thought that we were gonna like her. Like they honestly thought that we were supposed to like this character, and she comes out as completely unlikable in this film. And you noticed that too, right, Rick?
Oh yeah, I wrote the song. I think is called "Raise Your Right Finger," and obviously she's flipping off everyone because she doesn't feel a need to apologize. And I figured the whole scene at the gym is to kind of mend fences and just apologize to everyone whom the slam book or burn book has hurt. Her decision is no, I have nothing. The only thing I'm apologizing for is that I'm not meaner to you. And I literally wrote this in my notes. I wrote, "Raise your right finger. Janice is bitch." I mean, I'm sorry. I wrote that. I literally wrote that on my notes right here. I wrote it there because she is the meanest of the mean girls. My takeaway is that, not having seen the original, all the girls, I'm assuming, in the first movie are mean. That's why they're all mean girls. All of them. The Plastics, Cady, Janice, even this person who's technically not a girl, but I mean they're all. But for some reason, he's the only male in that scene in the gym where it's all women and just him. They're all mean. Is this a case from the movie? Were they all this insufferable and mean and arrogant and cruel to each other?
No.
Because she's the one who's instigating. She's doing terrible things. She's doing terrible things to Regina. She's the one that's convincing her to put on the lard or the cream. She's the one that is giving her all this food that is making her fat. But that does show how stupid Regina is if she can't realize that it's the food that she's eating that's making her gain weight.
I almost feel
She's
like the
just an
original
insufferable.
movie, like it sells it as like she's fighting back, like because she does that, but like it's very much like and then you have the reveal by actor Janice in Mean Girls, who's like, you're turning into one of them, you're becoming what you claim to be against. This is why this is interesting to listen to this, because Janice is a character that helps Cady see what she's doing, and in this it sounds like she's just a terrible person.
Yes, Janice is a terrible person. It almost seems like Janice is pushing Cady into becoming a plastic. when they have that big confrontation, it's like, oh, you're turning into them, and here, oh, when she says, oh, you're becoming obsessed with me, and of course the sassy guy's like, oh no, you didn't, like, oh gosh,
Yeah, which like
but
I said,
you had, but
it's literally shot for shot from the first film, just with new characters. So
I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know that. That's why I like going into these things clean. But like, oh, here, I did this for you, like this art. I won a prize. And I looked at the painting, I'm going, that's ugly. That's an ugly painting. I don't know how you won for anything. But point is, I feel that Janice is really the meanest of the mean girls. Yeah, Regina is an unpleasant character who looks down on people, but she actually came across as hurt when she's publicly humiliated at the Christmas show or the talent show, and when she gets ostracized by the other plastics. It's Janice who's celebrating this. A good person doesn't celebrate someone getting so viciously punished. I can understand getting a feeling of, oh well, they deserve some kind of payback, but it just seems so excessive. Janice is so unlikable. And my takeaway is, if she is this way in the original, as she is here in this musical adaptation, there is no person that I want to be part of when it comes to the original movie.
I
All
will
of them,
say,
I don't know if all of them are just awful. They are awful, awful people.
and
All
I
of
will
them,
say
without
this,
exception.
and maybe Rob can refresh me here on this. I don't remember Lizzie Chaplin's character being that insufferable in the first film. Like, her entire motivation was that her and Regina used to be friends, and then they split up because Regina said a rumor about her. So she just wanted revenge against Regina. Like, that was kind of like her whole sole motivation here. She didn't come off to me as like an insufferable bitch. And like, either later on, like we get into the film, like the whole bit is that Regina called her like a lesbian or referred that she was a lesbian, and I don't believe that her character in that film was actually a lesbian. That was
Um,
kind of just more of her style. Talking about in the first movie, not in this movie, but in this one, the musical version, they do go more further into her actually being a lesbian in this film rather than the first one. Did you notice that, Rob, in the first movie about Lizzie Chaplin's character?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, to be fair, but
Mm-hmm.
just operating from my memory, she is the character that is supposed to help, Cady see what she's doing, and she's an outcast, along with her friend who's like a big gay guy. I don't know. That's
Yeah,
like all I'm
oh,
going from my
boy, we
memory, but
gay.
and
Boy,
like I
we
even think
gay.
they kiss at like the end of the movie, and they're like, ew. They're both like, ew. So I mean, it's just, because one of them's gay and one of them's not.
yeah.
That was the whole thing. But
No,
no,
no, go ahead.
and I like Lizzie Kaplan. I like the actress who plays Janice in the original movie a lot. But I'm sure I would have remembered it if she was insufferable, because it's like that, you don't forget that kind of stuff. But no, I
No,
definitely think they changed her character for this musical, and it sounds not for the better.
I'm presuming then that maybe in 2004, Janice's lesbianism is a little more opaque, because
She's a
here it's
tomboy. That's it. She's a tomboy. I mean, I don't want to be like it's like Cassie, but it's
Pretty
it's
much. I mean, yeah.
that same wheelhouse of like just being made fun of because you don't want to subscribe to what
It
the
was back in a
plastic girls
time.
do.
It was back in a time in this country where girls can actually dress like a boy and not be a lesbian. But now, because we prop up all of these gender identities, now it's like, well, if she's slightly tomboyish, that means she has to be either like non-binary or genderqueer or whatever made up
but
nonsense they have now. Then that's what
but
decided to
but
go
she's
into.
in this version. In this version, she's not a tomboy. I mean, she
Yeah,
dresses,
in this version she's not. In the original she was, but in this version
Mhm.
she's not.
and then in this version, I really can't remember if there's a musical section explaining the breakup between her and Regina, but
No.
here it's like pretty clear, like, oh look, we exchanged these little toys, and I put the little rainbow pin on it, and saying that I'm a lesbian, and so it's like that's the reason. My understanding is that the reason that they broke their relationship is because Regina outed her as a lesbian.
In this film, it was because So like I said, in this film, the whole thing is that she outed her as a lesbian. In the original, it was because she was spreading the rumor that she was a lesbian, even though she really wasn't. So, like I said, that's the little tweak there. And I'll say this because people will say that, oh, so is this version more woke than the other one? They obviously changed, race swapped a lot of the characters as far as like the race there go. Like they made Karen's character the Indian girl. Obviously, they race swapped the big gay guy with a black guy. So they did do that as far as like the diverse casting. I can't really say that, with the exception of Janice's character, that this film is more woke than the other one. Because honestly, if you go back and you watch the 2004 movie, a lot of that stuff was in the 2004 movie. Like outside of that one plot point, this is really a shot-for-shot remake of the original Mean Girls. So if you're noticing things in this movie, if you go back and watch the 2004 movie, you'll notice the exact same thing. So I can't really say that all in all that they made this like a woke reboot. It was like the first one was kind of, let's just say, liberal. That play. I mean,
Jacob,
look, it is Tina Fey we're talking about here, so I mean, it shouldn't be a big surprise in anyone.
Jacob, you didn't mention that Gretchen, one of the other plastics, she's
Yeah,
Latina.
is she?
Yes, because remember when she goes to open the music box that she finds? Oh, this was the song that my abuelita sang to me. Now I don't know many white kids who refer to their grandparents as abuelita. I do. I mean,
It's my favorite hot chocolate.
yeah. Oh yes, I have a whole box. I got that for Christmas. That was
Okay,
my
so apparently the actress in real life has some kind of a Cuban heritage. I was like, I don't know. All I noticed is that she was a massive step down from Lacey Chavez. Like, I mean, you couldn't possibly go any lower in this film than what you had with Lacey in the first film. It's
I
like,
mean,
why did you even try then if this is the effort that you were going to give
I
us?
mean, I'll say this much: it doesn't bother me again because I don't have a connection or an affinity to the original. I mean, I figure it was done to have diverse casting, and I figure it was done so that it could qualify for Best Picture next
Yeah,
year.
good luck with
But
that.
hey, anything's possible. Barbie's going to sweep this year. Okay, all I can tell you is that it didn't bother me, but it really didn't help. And oh yes, I put down that the song that Regina sings in the Halloween party. I
Hmm.
said it would work on stage, but not on screen. A lot of these songs, again, that's what a musical is supposed to focus on, the songs, and they just don't work. I don't really remember any of them. And again, I kept thinking I'm watching the stage show. I'm watching the stage show. I'm not even watching like a shot for shot remake of the original because I've never seen it. What I'm thinking is I'm watching the stage show. So a musical that's adapted from the stage has to open up and has to have something original to it. If you're just remaking it but just putting in songs and the only updates is that at the like I said at the talent show, you know they're videotaping her and it's going viral. Why would anyone really care? Why would anyone really care that much if
Like I said, that's
Regina?
one of those. It's one of the modern tweaks that they had. Because obviously, the first one came out in 2004, so it's not like we had social media and everyone had a phone to capture every moment. So that's one of the things that
Yeah,
they did to kind of like update it to like modern times. It's like, oh, we're gonna make this go viral on YouTube and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like, like I get it, but it's like to kind of said to placate to like that Gen Z audience. I think a lot of things were lost in translation as far as that goes. Like I said, there's a few character tweaks here that really didn't translate over very well because of the fact that it was a musical. It's like it's tough if you're gonna do like your own thing. That's one aspect of it. But like I said, if you're just gonna do a shot for shot and then add in a couple of musical numbers on there, I feel like there was just a lot of things that were disjointed and lost in translation from the 2004 to the 2024 that we had here. So, like I said, I think that was more just a creative blunder on my end. So, yep. So, I
well,
mean,
you know, this movie, I don't. This movie won't appeal to any. It won't appeal, I think, to the older fans who love the original, because they're going to see the same movie only with
yeah.
songs in it. And for someone like me who's never seen the original, I hated all the characters, even Aaron or whatever the guy's name. He wasn't a good guy either because he was willing to hook up with his ex again, even though he's clearly interested in Cady. Like, all of these people are awful. Why am I watching this?
So here's the other thing too. This is something that I noticed, and it's hard for me to call this one out. But if you go back to the 2004 Mean Girls, obviously with a lot of the cast they put on there, they were slightly older than the high school kids. I mean, I think like what's her name? Rachel McAdams is like almost like in her 30s or close to her 30s when she did the first Mean Girls movie. So that's how far back where we're going here. But I noticed with like this one, a really tough transition is that pretty much a lot of the people on here were significantly less attractive than their counterparts from the 2004 version. And when you're doing a movie that's so close to that one, people are obviously going to compare. And it just feels like every character was like a major step down from the character that was cast 20 years ago, like just almost across the board. Like, I can't say that there was a single person cast in this movie who did a better job than their counterpart from 2004. And that's probably a big problem, because that means you're not elevating any of the material, you're just downgrading. And ultimately this becomes a film where if you watch it, not only are you going to leave unsatisfied, all this is going to do is make you want to watch a 2004 movie rather than embrace the 2024 movie, which is a big problem for what they were trying here. So when I'm looking at Mean Girls, like I said, I watched the first.
You are wrong. You are wrong.
Based on what?
You are wrong. Having seen this movie, based on the idea that having seen this movie, I have absolutely no desire to watch the 2004 one. If it's going to be the same thing, I don't want to watch it now.
Well, hey, let me rephrase this one. If you've actually watched the first Mean Girls movie before watching this one, this will only make you want to go back and watch that movie. If you're someone who never saw this before because you're a schmuck, then you probably are not going to want to go back and watch the 2004 version of this movie. Like I said, I still the 2000.
I still have a that I'm not the.
No, not this time. But no, like I've seen the 2004 version. That one doesn't hold up nearly as well for me. Like I said, if it wasn't a bunch of pretty girls, I'd probably rate it even lower. But I was really just struggling when I was watching this one. It's like, do I like this one better? I mean, I'm sorry, do I like this one worse or about on par? And when I really started thinking about it, I think this one is just a step below the 2004 one in basically every single category that I could think of. I'm still struggling to find a correct rating because I'm floating between like a 1.5 and a 2 right now. So I don't really know which going to be my final number. So Rick, I'll let you go ahead and give your review here. Maybe you can sway me one way or another.
Well, I'm going to give this a 0. I absolutely hated it.
Really?
I hated every minute of it. I cursed you on the way out of the theater. Yes, I've seen musicals and I like musicals, but there's not one person in this movie that is a good person and that I cared about. I would have preferred every single person to be run over by the bus and killed. I just hated it. The songs are not good. I didn't like one part where in the apology they reference the actual musical number that they were all in. And I thought that's just stupid. I would, I guess I would watch the stage show. I mean, I basically saw the stage show. So this is already this is
So
one of
wait,
the. I
real
don't know
quick,
if
real
this would
quick.
be the worst movie.
Real quick, did you watch?
Yeah.
Did you actually watch the Broadway play of Mean Girls before watching this movie? Have you actually seen the Broadway of Mean Girls before this?
No, I've never seen any Mean Girls.
Okay.
But I was watching the staging of the musical numbers. I was saying to myself, this is like watching the stage show because it looks like a stage show. It doesn't look like anything.
Nah, it's like we lost him there for a second.
In it that I didn't note. When she was when Cady was pretending to not know about math to impress Aaron, it was Janice who said, fracking isn't dangerous. I mean, fracking is dangerous. Redlining is bad. Like to kind of convince her that what she was doing was bad but harmless. So fracking does. I mean, it's like, oh golly. So honestly, Jacob, I would give this a 0 out of 5. This is just one of the worst movies I've seen. I know I know it's strange to say one of the worst movies I've seen this year, but while it's not as bad as Hollywood Babylon, I I would have to have I would struggle to decide which one I would rather watch. This is just terrible. I hated this movie. I now never want to see the original Mean Girls if it's going to be exactly like this. I said to myself, I don't want to watch the original. So for me, it's a zero. The zero. I hated it. Please don't make me watch this again.
I can't go quite that far because I didn't have the hate for it to go as low as you did. But one thing that I will say about this movie is that it's after watching it, I just don't have any desire to ever watch this again. Like this is a film like I can see myself watching the original Mean Girls at some point down the line. I can't see myself going back and watching this film again. So if I'm being
And it's
straight and honest with
not
you,
even original.
I,
It's not even original. For me, it's like,
yeah.
oh, this is like a version of Heathers. This is like a version of Heathers without the mass killings. I don't
I
understand
think
why
I'm gonna
people think
go.
it's this brilliant piece of work.
I think I'm gonna go with 1.5 out of 5. I think that's probably a fair one. Like I say, it's just not. It did not come together well at all. It just didn't have what it needed there. So I think 1.5 for me, it's fair. Obviously, you'll have a different perspective of this film, not knowing anything about the lore of Mean Girls beforehand. But I say if I'm
I
being
might
fair,
actually
I'll
want to
probably give
watch
it that.
Joyride again. I might actually
Well,
want to watch Joyride over this.
I'm glad you brought that up because did you notice that the girl from Joyride was actually in this movie? Ashley Park, who's the one who
No.
played the main girl. She played the French teacher, remember?
Remember what I said is that she's
Oh,
classically
okay.
trained at the Kennedy Center Honor. Like she's a great, technically she's a great singer, and she
Well,
whatever just relegated to that fucking
I can
shit,
yes,
dude.
I can see and it's sad because she wasn't given a song. All she had was two scenes, and why would she participate in this thing where she has to paint her like do the crying makeup and wet her hair because that's what happened to Regina. It's stupid. It's stupid, but you know. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to. Like I said, if you're really, I guess on a Mean Girls kick, just go watch the original. I don't see what the value of this movie is for everyone, but for anyone who loves fetch, I'll just play this quick little clip here.
You hate math.
Look how red she is. You love him, and he totally complimented you. That is so fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
And then you could just feel her little heart break. And I just wanted to give her a hug, but I never got that opportunity. Damn it.
Poor Meg Griffin. She was the original voice for Meg Griffin before
Mila Kunis took over.
Yeah.
And I generally just like Lacey Chabert way more than I like Mila Kunis and literally anything she's ever done in her life. But that's a topic for a whole nother day. So here we are. Those are our reviews for the night. So I'm gonna give you guys a choice here because next week is pretty light on movies. There's the only film that's coming out is some like B science fiction movie called the ISS. I can make you guys watch that film and we can review it, or we can just spin the wheel again. So what do you guys
Spin
prefer?
the wheel.
Yeah, spin the wheel because I'm technically working next week, but I can join late probably if it's at 10 again. So,
well,
who knows? Maybe Tremors. Maybe we'll finally hit Tremors.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, probably not. So we have here on the wheel this week Cleopatra Jones, Small Soldiers, Halloween 3, Live from Baghdad, Ghost World, Tremors, Notorious, Lionheart, Car Wash, Used Cars. I think I already said Cleopatra Jones. So those are our 10 movies on the wheel. Let's see what movie we're going to watch next week. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Tremors. So. Oh, would you look at that? I was right.
Car Wash.
Car Wash.
Ooh, Car Wash.
70s movie.
Next Friday, we'll be watching the original Car Wash, not that Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre movie that came out in 2001. We're watching the original one with Richard Pryor, the one that was actually good. So that's what we'll be watching next week here on the show. So I spare you a week of having to sit through a bad movie. So there you go. Well, the end of the show here, so I can go ahead and shoot it over to you guys. It's your time to prop up what you guys got coming up here. Rick, I say your connection is working a lot better now on your phone tablet thing than it was working earlier. So
I know it's terrible. Maybe I need to get a new laptop. First, thank you everyone for your patience with me. What I'm working on is I am almost done with Echo. I'm going to be on episode 4. Maybe I'll watch that right afterwards. And so I'm doing that, more reviews, and hopefully getting better connections. But thank you all. I appreciate it, and I don't appreciate having watched Mean Girls, but that's pretty much it. Hopefully, I'll have Echo and maybe Book of Clarence. I can't promise that.
get to that there in a second. Rob, what you got coming out?
Yeah, actually, just remembered I will be free next Friday because I had to request tonight off. Because anyway, not important. But yeah, I'll be here next week. I have the review of the Beekeeper that I'm going to be writing tomorrow. Get posted this weekend sometime, so look for that over on my Twitter. I finished up season 3 of the Twilight Zone, so we're just kind of continuing that watch. And I'm just watching movies like I normally do. Want to try to get more writing done. Now that we're in January, part of the new year, so just look for those over on my Twitter, and just keeping the watch open for what the Titans do at head coach, because that's a shit show, and the whole head coaching thing right now is a shit show. There's everybody's out of a job. There's 7 openings, so that'll be really interesting to watch as that comes together over the next month or so.
Is North Turner still around? Is he could be a coach?
No, I think he died.
Well, maybe. I mean, at least I don't have to worry that hold me. Oh God, if he mentioned he went back to the Chargers, that'd be terrible. Outside of that, what I got coming up. So this coming it's coming Monday, I should say. I actually did watch another movie this weekend. I watched The Book of Clarence, and the reason why I didn't review that movie tonight is because in order to talk about that movie, I really need to do a deep dive into it. So that's more fitting for the Bible In show. So this Monday night, we'll be doing a review of The Book of Clarence and why it is a blasphemous piece of crap. And if you haven't seen my episode last Monday, which was a deep dive into the Nation of Islam and the 5% Nation of Islam, you really need to go check out that episode because it's going to make perfect sense into why this film is terrible. But that's coming up on Monday here on the channel. Tuesday, it is Echo Mania. We've been hyping this up for 6 months. It is finally going to happen. All 5 episodes of Echo we're going to review and talk about on Tuesday night. I sent out a lot of invites. I'm still waiting to hear back right now. I got a few maybes, so hopefully we'll have some bigger YouTubers on Tuesday night. I'm trying to see if we can get Culture Casino on, trying to see if we can get Comics Division on, trying to see if we can get Yellow Flash on. So we'll see what happens on Tuesday night, but I just know that Echo Mania is going to be amazing on Tuesday night. So check us out there in the bar room. Then, like we said, next Friday, we'll be back here to watch Car Wash 1976 version. And by the way, if you're not on the Bounding in the Comics YouTube channel, all 3 of my reviews should be up for the next few days, maybe early next week as well. So you can go check out my reviews over there as well, because I did a lot of work into that. So that's everything I got coming up on here. Thank you, Rob, for joining me here for another Friday night. Thank you, Rick, for joining us. Everyone who joined us here in the chat, give a quick little shout out to you: Alex vs. Evil, Henry, Michael, Rooftop Korean, Vanya, Spencer, Awesome One, Kurt over here joining us over on Rumble as well. To everyone, thank you guys for joining us for another Friday night, but we're here to sign off now, so we will see you guys, if not Monday night, if not Tuesday, next Friday night here on the show. Adios. We'll see you. Bye.
It's over. Go home.
Get the hell out! Get out! Get out! Get out!
Okay.
Get out! Get out!
You get the hell out!
Never mind who you thought I was. I'm Rick James, bitch.